On this episode, we reached out to expat staff in the large company that I work for and asked them where they go in Bangkok if they want to get a solid dose of home.
It's an expat-filled episode, which should give the Thai nationals listening an even greater insight into our crazy Farang behavior on This Week here on the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who flew Moose Airlines to Thailand in 2001 and decided to stick around for a while.
And I am Ivo Terra, an American expat living full-time in Bangkok since the beginning of 2016, who's trying not to slur his words tonight. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to the Big Mango.
That serves you right. That's what happens when you drink beer a lot in quantities.
2 nights in a row. Ugh.
Well, first let's say thank to one of our Patreon supporters tonight. So who do we have today?
Right, tonight we are thanking someone special, and this special person's name is Kieran Faulkner.
Right, now as you know, Evo, I do like to do some research on our patrons just to make sure they're the kind of people that we do like supporting us and that we would like to have a beer with in real life. And I found out something interesting about Kieran, as I always do about our listeners. Now, you don't know if just hearing his name, but his name is actually spelled Ciaran, which is a bit of an odd spelling. Well, years ago, he used to spell it the more traditional way, which is Kieran. But check this out. One day he was walking down to the 7-Eleven to buy some beef jerky,
right,
and he noticed there was a building on fire. So without thinking about his own safety, he rushed in to see if he could help anyone. It turns out the building was a hospital maternity ward. It had a few dozen babies in there. So Kieran, without thinking, carried them out one by one, going back in each time, saving every single baby in the entire building. And the damn thing is, the parents were so thankful that every single one of them named their kid Kieran. So 10 years go by and poor Kieran is getting mail and email and packages and parking tickets, all from these other Kierans. So finally, he had too much and changed the spelling of his name just to get some peace and quiet. So hats off to our hero Kieran. And sorry it had to come to that, buddy.
But part of that might have been the fact that, they're babies. You can carry more than one. They tend to be small.
I don't know, man. Even in a moment of emergency like that, when people are holding one screaming baby, the last thing going through their mind is, I should probably hold another screaming baby.
That's true. That's true. The one is more than enough to help support the show and to get access to bonus content, load up on some cool swag, and to get Greg to make up some fantastic things like this about you. Please get signed up over at patreon.com/Bangkok Podcast.
So before we get into where certain nationalities go in Bangkok for a taste of home, I need to talk about this character I met last week. And it's just, I won't get into it too much because it's quite a long story, but it's just one of those great examples of why Bangkok is such a cool city. And you meet these random people and these random social places, and it turns out to be so memorable that you just want to meet them again and just
sure,
redo it. So 7 years ago, I wrote a story for CNN called 50 Reasons Why Bangkok is the Best City in the World. And it got a lot of play at the time, but kind of faded out. And one of the reasons I listed was the food counter called Tuk Ladi inside Foodland on Soi 5, Sukhumvit Soi 5 or 7. No, it's 5.
I don't know. I don't think I've been there.
Oh, it's
so
fantastic.
This is definitely a cool story.
Well, Foodland is a 24-hour grocery store, and Tuk Ladi is the food counter inside the grocery store, which cooks up a lot of traditional Thai food, as well as some standard Western food too, sandwiches and things like that. And the thing about Soi 5 is that you've got Little Arabia right next door. You've got all the African prostitutes and pimps and people, vendors and stuff out on the other side. You've got Nana Plaza just across the street.
Right across the way.
You've got bars and restaurants and people from all over the world stumbling out of these places at 3 a.m. So I said, if you want a real cross-section of humanity, go for like a 3 a.m. Khao Pad Gai or something like that in Tuk Ladi in Foodland. And it's just a great experience. The food is awesome. And the people watching couldn't be better. So anyway, they cut this out and they put it up in each of the locations of Foodland throughout the city. And there's like 20 locations of Tuk Ladi in Bangkok.
Yeah, they're all over.
Yeah. So anyway, recently, like a week ago, or a few weeks ago, CNN republished all these stories with a new byline on them and a new date. So a lot of people thought that I had just written it. So I get out of the blue, I get this call from this dude named Leonardo, who's the head food guy at Foodland for all of their branches. And he's like, hey, the owner of Foodland, this guy named Frank, he wants to meet you. And I was like, oh, well, okay. He wants to say thanks for writing this story. And I was like, well, okay, it's 7 years ago, but okay, sure. What have I got to lose? So I come and meet this guy. And man, this guy is a goddamn legend. Like, he's 85 years old. He came here from Hong Kong when he was like 20 years old with a one-way ticket. And now, I mean, this dude is probably wealthy beyond words. But he walked into Long Table. Have you been to this bar, Long Table?
I know of it, but I've not been there yet. Yeah,
it's like a swanky bar, and everyone dressed to the nines and stuff like that. And he walks in, he's got his little top hat on, his cane, he's got a polo shirt on, runners, dressed like an old Chinese man, and he just is the coolest guy ever. And he's just got so much energy, and he's running around talking to people. Everyone's whying him and stuff like that. And we have dinner. And he goes, hey, you want to come and see my spa? I was like, yeah, all right, sure. So he takes me over to the hotel next door, which he owns as well. And he's showing me the spa. And he's like pointing out, oh, I'll do this, and this is here, and this is here. And I come out, and he hands me this card. And he gives me a 2-year VIP membership to the spa. And he goes, hey, let's go downstairs. I'll show you around Foodland. So we're on Soy 16. So we go downstairs, and he's like showing me, pointing out all the food he has, and like, this comes from Germany, and this is special made for this place. And he grabs an ice cream out of the freezer. You want one? I'm like, no, I'm good. And he's taking peanuts to snack on, and his secretary is following us around, writing down everything that he takes. He doesn't rip off. Sure. Anyway, it's an incredible like 5 or 6 hours with this guy, and dude just came from the hospital for a back surgery or something. Like, not from back surgery, but he's got problems with his back. I was struggling to keep up with him. Like I said, he's 85 years old. And finally it was like Thursday night, like 11 o'clock. I said, Frank, this is amazing, but I gotta go home to bed, man. I gotta get up from work. And he's like, oh yeah, okay. So I took a picture with him outside of Foodland, and he was just a really, really nice, cool guy, and everything he said was interesting and funny, and he had endless stories about his life. So next time you're in a Foodland, I gotta say, Tukladi is just that's where it comes from. This one guy that came over here with a one-way ticket, no idea what to do, and he opened up this store, and now they're expanding to Singapore, of all places. That's
serious expat living, man. That's what we all hope to have, that kind of experience when we that kind of an impact on Bangkok before we leave.
The guy was a legend. I rambled on a little bit there, but it was just such a really interesting evening.
Sounds like a great guy. And my only question is, there's no name on that 2-year VIP pass, right? So you could like pass it along?
Yeah, unfortunately there is. It says Greg. And then on top he wrote VIP from Frank. So like in handwriting. So I guess the people at the club would know.
I could pass off at a Greg. That's good. I could do that.
I'll just give you my ID. Grow a goatee and shave your head.
Sure, and 5 inches.
Gain 30 pounds. All right, well, the topic of tonight's episode comes from a discussion that you and I had a while ago about where we go in Bangkok to get a taste of home. Now, I realize that not everyone's home is the same. For you, it's America. For me, it's Canada. Roughly analogous to the same kind of culture. But, I was thinking, what if you're Hungarian? What if you're Australian? What if you're French or Egyptian? What do you do in Bangkok if you want to get some comfort food? So it's obviously a popular topic because I often see posts on the local Facebook expat groups asking about this. And in fact, about an hour ago, before we started recording, someone posted something on one of the Facebook groups, on the expat groups. It's pretty hilarious. Let me read what this guy posted. He said, hey, is there restaurants, clubs, pubs that have mostly Scandinavian customers? I prefer talking to Scandinavian because of their greater general knowledge and overall intelligence. Please no hateful comments from the British or Yanks. So there's obviously a need for people to be surrounded by like-minded people from the same or similar cultures.
Especially those of greater overall intelligence.
Well, the funny thing is, as you expect, there's like 250 comments. And I read through some of them, and my favorite comment, this guy said, yeah, try Nana Plaza. Nordic meat shops are full of the Viking lust for the Asian broadsword. Never met a Skanda hooligan who didn't have a thing for geezer birds. I have no idea what that means.
I don't know either, but it's awesome.
So as we were talking about this, I thought, hey, I work at a big company with a lot of expats from all over the world. Why don't I ask them? So what I did was I posted a question on our internal Slack channel and asked everyone where they go to get a taste of their own country in Bangkok.
Oh, that's a fantastic idea because, yeah, being surrounded by expats of all cultures, not just, North American cultures, I'm sure you're going to get a wide swath. So we'll read some of those here, and apologies ahead of time if I butcher names because I'm reading some of these, and I don't work with you people, so again, apologies. I'm an American, and I have been drinking, so the pronunciations will be fluid, as it was. So a guy by the name of Geno Lazio, which could be a guy, could be a girl, I'm not really sure. He's from Hungary, or she, and he says this: I think Hungarians like to invite their friends to their home instead of meeting at a pub or restaurant. It is probably because we don't really have a pub culture. The host usually prepares some meal or provides snacks, and the guests bring booze or snacks. I know that Hungarians at the company have parties and stuff, and I find it charming. So there's Hungary for you.
Yeah, I guess so. I've never heard anyone in Bangkok say, "Hey, let's go out for Hungarian tonight."
Yeah, I say I'm hungry, but I don't think it's. You had to make the joke. One of us had to do the joke, so might as well be the drunk guy.
What is Hungarian food? Borscht or something like that?
Borscht is like a typical Eastern European food, so I assume they have that. I don't know how that goes.
That probably sounds really stupid of me to Hungarians. It's probably like what's traditional American food? A hamburger.
Yeah, no, you're likely right. We probably do sound like morons, but we certainly don't get it. But clearly here, as Jenna was saying, there aren't any Hungarian pubs in town that he is aware of. So sure, why not? You do that local, let's get together and do our own unique thing. That makes sense.
Yeah. I can dig it. Our next person is a guy by the name of Piyush Sinha, and he's from Kuwait. And he said, when I miss home, I get some Middle Eastern food from Nadimos, Beirut, or Bamboo. Not many options in Bangkok for shisha, or hubbly bubbly as they call it in parts of Kuwait. A good one only to be found on a visit home. Yeah, there used to be lots of shisha around, especially around Lower Sukhumvit, but I think they made it illegal a few years ago, and I'm not sure if that ever stuck or not.
It definitely has stuck because I am a big shisha or hookah fan,
right.
And it is a major no-no in Thailand because the Thai tobacco monopoly does not produce shisha. They do not produce any sort of tobacco for hookahs, and they do not have import licenses to bring this into the country, which means the government doesn't get any money, so therefore it's illegal, and it's a relatively common occurrence to see that there are raids on the various locations in Bangkok that are still offering shisha and or hookahs to their customers.
All right. Well, that explains it.
I did a lot of shisha hookahing when I was in Indonesia, like every other day. Me and a shisha for 3, 4, 5 hours on the beach. Yeah, I love me some good shisha.
I know the restaurants that Piyush is talking about, Nadimos, Beirut, and Bamboo. I prefer Beirut over most Middle Eastern restaurants. I think it's a really great place. But for me, if you want to get some Middle Eastern food, and I'm not specifically talking about Kuwait because I'm not sure exactly what Kuwaiti food is, but Middle Eastern food and Sukhumvit Soy 3/1 is just incredible. So that's where I go. But I'm not Kuwaiti, so Piyush obviously knows more than I do.
Yeah, that is very true. So we also have Ross from Spain. He wrote back and said Spanish cold cuts. Cheese, oh my God, cheese. Good olive oil and olives at El Mercado, which means the Mercado. Where is El Mercado? What's it talking about?
I have no idea. First of all, Roz is a woman. I know her. She's a lovely person.
Oh, sorry, Roz.
You know what? I've never been to El Mercado in Bangkok. I never heard of it, so I'm going to look up where it is.
I do know while you're looking that up that finding good quality Spanish cheese would be amazing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it's hard to find here, and Spaniards have fantastic olive oil. When I was in Spain a couple of years ago, I went to the Millennial Olive Groves. These are olive groves. These olive trees are over 1,000 years old, and they make amazing olive oil. That yes, you can totally taste the difference. So, Ross, thank you. I'm going to check out El Mercado if I can get the quality stuff. I mean, I'll probably pay 18,000 baht for, a wedge of cheese and a dollop of olive oil, but man, I am certainly missing the good quality stuff.
Well, if you're at Queen Circuit National Convention Center, it's right across Rama 3 Road on the other side. So if you get on Sukhumvit Soy 16 at the same place where Foodland is, where I met Frank, if you go all the way down to the end and then take a right and then a right and then a left, it's down in that area. So that's where it is, and I got some pictures on Google, and it looks real good. I've never had real Spanish food like that, so I might check it out too.
It's so good. Spanish food is really good.
A lot of these have been about food so far. I think a lot of them are actually about food, and I never asked people specifically where you go for food. I said, where do you go if you want sort of like a home experience? But
and they all took food out of that. I get that completely.
Fine with me. Now, the next guy is Matt Malkowski, who is from Poland. And he said homemade pierogi with sauerkraut, also homemade, is the best option for Polish.
Yeah.
I've not a lot of experience with that, but I had a Polish friend in Canada, and his mom made pierogi, and they were great. So I don't know where you'd buy them in Bangkok. I guess that's why he prefers them homemade.
Yeah, I've got no idea either. I know that as a child growing up, I hated sauerkraut.
Really?
And that is because in my family, sauerkraut came out of a can. Sauerkraut wasn't something that was actually produced. I mean, we grew cabbage, we had a large farm, and did that. But no one made sauerkraut, even though we do have German and Eastern European in our blood. Sauerkraut was something that was made. Sauerkraut was something that came out of a can that bought from a store, and it was terrible. And then I know the first time that I actually had quality sauerkraut was at a Polish restaurant in Phoenix, Arizona, in the middle of nowhere and in far northern Phoenix, at a little tiny spot. And the food I ordered had sauerkraut, and I'm going, oh, that's that nasty sauerkraut, man. I don't want that. It's going to be terrible.
Let me guess.
And my buddy who's there was Polish, and he said, no, just try. And I put it in my mouth, and I said, can I get 17 more forks and 17 people to push that into my mouth, because that's amazing.
I've never had homemade sauerkraut. Matt, bring some into work. Drop it off at my desk. I'm sure my coworkers won't mind some fermented cabbage on my desk.
They'll matter in about 30 minutes afterwards. They'll definitely mind it.
Well, I could look forward to that.
So our buddy Tim from Australia, Tim says, I can give you an anti-taste of home. Oh, God, let's see what Tim has to say here. I avoid Phuket to stay away from Australians. I totally understand, Tim. Seriously, the Asham, whatever that is, hosting
That's
of
the
the
Australian Chamber of Commerce, sorry.
The AUS Cham, Australian Cham, like we have AmCham, that's AusCham. Yeah. Hosting of the AFL, the Australian Football League Grand Final in the last weekend of September is the greatest injection of Australianness anywhere in the world, which sounds like a good time to be away from that area.
Now, when he says Australian Football League, is he talking about rugby? Or
well,
like dudes running down the field with their head on backwards because they just got tackled by 35 guys?
I think it's different. I think that AFL is different than rugby. I think that's its own special blend of things. But I don't know. I mean, Australians mostly drunk and do weird things with sports when given the opportunity. And there's usually a shark, which is thrown onto the field at some point in time. And theoretically they speak English, but no one can understand any of them because it's Australia.
Well, Michael Gaida from Germany, he said, hey, if I need some stuff from home, I go to Bei Otto. It is a German restaurant with an attached German supermarket where you can find very typical stuff. This is all about food, though, but I can't think of anything that I miss. Just sometimes a good Schweinshaxe and Rotkohl. And he gave me some pictures of that. So, Bei Otto, that's been there for years. That was here when I first moved here 16 years ago. It's a great place, a small little place, but it's just stuffed with schnitzels and breads and cheese and German things like that. So, it's real good.
Ich bin ein Berliner, so I should go try that out. That sounds fascinating.
Soy 22 or soy 20, somewhere around there.
So let's jump into Malaysia, our neighbors to the south. And Fendi Ibrahim says that the Singaporean/Malaysian food here in Bangkok is actually quite tasty, and he gives a link to some a restaurant review for a fantastic place that I think might be called the Sambalaka Cafe in Bangkok, and apparently that's supposed to be pretty tasty Singaporean/Malaysian food. Now, I've been to Malaysia on a handful of times, usually for a visa run, and I have always found Malaysian food to be quite tasty, but I don't know that I know what is iconically Malaysian food. Do you?
No, I have no idea. I've only been to KL for a very short period of time. I have been to Singapore, though, and they couldn't shut up about the Singaporean chicken rice. You gotta have the Singaporean chicken rice. You gotta try the Singaporean chicken rice from a good street vendor. So I went out and I got it, and it was chicken and rice.
Right.
I wasn't that impressed with it at all.
Which is the way I feel about Bangkok chicken rice. I mean, it's nice, but at the end of the day, it's two things. It's chicken and rice. And
I'll happily eat it, but I'm not crossing the town for it,
Yeah, so. I'm not blown away by this thing at all, but whatever.
Yeah, I guess so. Whatever floats your boat. But I'm glad that Fendi has a good place to find good food here anyway. So, Viljar from Norway, I know this guy, he's a good dude. He said, for Scandinavians, it's a bit limited in Bangkok. There are a lot more Scandinavians in Pattaya and Hua Hin. In Bangkok itself, there is Admiral on Soy 24. It's a Danish restaurant. The Swedish community often meets at Stable Lodge on Soy 8. There's also the Mermaid Hotel on Soy 29. Sounds sexy. For whatever reason, they have a Brazilian restaurant, but the bar is decorated wonderfully Scandinavian.
Of course it is.
And then he says, the greatest part, other than that, meatballs or salmon at IKEA.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that.
Cool.
That is.
I've never heard of any of those places he mentions, but I have been to IKEA, and I got to say, the meatballs ain't all that bad, save for the fact that there was horse meat in some of them a few years ago. That was kind of a scandal, but hey, if you didn't know it was horse meat, still tastes
exactly.
good to me.
I know that's impacting my palate at all. Cerebra might be a different thing, but overall, I will definitely eat it. So, yeah, I've not had an opportunity to try to look for Scandinavian food here, other than a friend of mine who lives in the western part of Thailand, and he's a Weege, a Norwegian, and he says he makes the greatest meatballs ever, and I had them, and they tasted like meatballs. I mean, meatballs are great. Don't get me wrong, but greatest ever.
It's like Singaporean chicken rice of Scandinavia,
kind of thing. All right.
Whenever I think of Scandinavian food, I just have an image of people lowering an entire fish whole into their mouth as they're like sword swallowing. That's probably somewhat stereotyped, but
almost the same thing. Almost the same thing. Hey, speaking of stereotypes, let's go to Italy, and here's Dario. Dario says that as an Italian, I find a bit of Italy in a small church in Sala Daeng, where they hold a service in Italian on Monday mornings. Now, note that probably it gathers less than 1% of the whole Italian community in Bangkok, but it might not be representative. But that's interesting. So, I mean, obviously at Sala Daeng is the whole Soy convent. There's a pretty large Catholic contingency in that particular area of Ceylon, but he's found an Italian church which does interesting services.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I love most of these things on here are about food, but that's interesting because that says a lot about, how deeply Roman Catholicism is ingrained in Italian culture, and it's good that that's reflected here. And Dario, you say it's not that representative, but you're a representative of the Italian community, so I say it is. And it's great that they have that here that caters for you. Religion's not that important to me, but I'm glad that if it is, there is a place you can go to check it out. So that's really cool.
Well, you're assuming it's Roman Catholicism. I mean, this could be a church service for the Roman gods. I mean, they could be offering up sacrifices to Zeus and Poseidon.
Yeah. Could be Scientology for all.
Sorry, Jupiter. Sorry, let's not mix the Greeks in there.
Oh, now you're going to get us killed.
I know. That'd be terrible.
Well, Victor Kudryavtsev from Russia. Victor from Russia. He says, it's not easy to get a taste of Russia in Bangkok. It is better to go to Pattaya.
Yeah.
Russian songs, ads, dirt, shitty roads, and the best part is Russian tourists everywhere. So I almost felt like home when I accidentally traveled there a month ago. When I accidentally traveled to Pattaya.
How does one? Oops! I got on the bus and I'm in Pattaya, soy 6. All of a sudden, I didn't know what happened there.
I think a lot of people go to Pattaya wish it was an accident.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan.
But hindsight.
He's right. Pattaya has like Russian newspapers. There's bars where there's Russian hostesses and what have you. Yeah, there's a big Russian presence there. And so it's good to know. Not in Bangkok, but Pattaya is just a few hours drive. So if you're really jonesing for some Russian surroundings, there you go.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Greg. It takes some time to find the Russian community in Bangkok proper, but Pattaya, as he's talking about here, and even Phuket, there's a large contingency of Russians. So much to the point to where there will be a sign first in Thai, then in Cyrillic, and then finally in English at the bottom. So you know you're in a pro-Russian area in Pattaya, in Phuket, or other areas where it gets that level.
Yeah. And that's all we got. I think it was a pretty good cross section of the expat communities in Bangkok, and it's interesting to hear that most of these also sort of skewed towards the food. Not that I can blame them, because if I want a good old moose steak, I'm not going to find it in Bangkok. But it would be nice to have the option.
Where are you going for Canadian restaurant? I mean,
well, it's funny because there are a couple of places that make really good poutine.
Oh, yeah, right.
Where you're from. And that's the kind of thing that Canadians is sort of like our little inside joke. Hey, have you tried that poutine place down on the street? So yeah, it is a big thing, right? Like, I can't get snow here. I can't go snowshoeing.
No.
I can't, so the easiest and quickest thing to do to get a taste of home is literally to get a taste of home with some ethnic food. So
right. And for Americans, it's the same way, except instead of poutine, it's where's good Mexican food.
If you want good American food, go to Mexico.
Although I did get invited tonight when we were out drinking with my friends that run Bootleg Brewing, my brand new friends that run Bootleg Brewing here in Thailand.
Are they paying you for these mentions, by the way?
No, but they think they did in beer tonight and then the night before last. One of the founders of the company is third generation Thai, but he is Indian by descent, and he is really interested in having both Sheila and I come over to cook Thanksgiving dinner, because we're American, therefore we know how to make Thanksgiving dinner, which oddly enough we do. We're actually both quite good at making decent ones. So who knows? I may be doing Thanksgiving dinner expat style for Thai Indians in a few weeks, which could be an interesting story.
Best thing to do for Thanksgiving in Bangkok is just order from a place like Foodland again.
Yeah.
Or a lot of the hotels or grocery stores. You just order the size of turkey you want, and they deliver with all the fixins and everything. It's great.
And the time is right now. If you have a 200-pound chicken, the time to start thawing your chicken or your turkey is right now. Yes. Anyhow, that big, long laundry list of fantastic restaurants and other experiences that are not Canadian and not American, but more broadly expatriate in Bangkok was wonderful. But you know what the most wonderful thing is about the Bangkok podcast, and that is everyone's favorite segment of the show called Love, Loathe, or Leave, where we look at one minor aspect of living in Bangkok and find out if it's something the two of us love about living in Bangkok, something we loathe about expat life, or if it's something that we hate so much that it might just cause us to leave Thailand officially. And this week, Greg, I believe you have the honors.
I do. Now, I don't know if you have much experience with this, but I do, because I drive a car. And I really, really hate it when I drive up to a parkade, a parking garage, a mall, or what have you, in the basement, or whether it's up high. And a lot of the parking garages have automated parking systems, so it says like 45 free spaces this way.
Oh, right.
So you're like, oh, great. So you turn down that aisle, and all of them are taken up and blocked off for supercars, whatever these stupid things are. So they've invested hundreds of thousands of baht into these automated parking alert systems, and then they've gone and painted over the parking spaces and put little like like these wheeled barriers in front of the parking spaces, so me and my Honda can't park there because it's close to the door. And Somchai, who bought a Mercedes and he's paying it off for the rest of his life, somehow he has a supercar and I have to park at the other end of the mall and walk all the way. But I hate these things. It defeats the entire purpose of these automated parking things, and it's just...
You're right. I don't experience it because I do drive a motorbike, but at the same token, the close, convenient spots when I park my motorbike are all taken up by, spoiler alert, superbikes. That's anything that's over, I think, 500 cc's. They have special parking just for them. And I always find it maddening. So you mean you're going to give special parking to the guy that could get to the exit 4 times as fast as I can? But you're going to put him closer. Does that make sense?
I can understand, like, a lot of these parking spots are reserved for, like, if you're a member of, like, some VIP club or something like that.
Yep.
If you have, like, the right credit card or something like that. I get that because you pay for that and anyone can do that.
Membership has its privileges, as they say.
Exactly. But these guys, just because they own an expensive car, suddenly they get to park closer to the exits and elevators and escalators and everyone else does. Like, that's just seems stupid to me.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it's the whole, like, it just messes with the entire automated thing. So everyone's turning down these aisles that say they have a lot of space, but they don't, and it just wrecks the whole traffic flow of the place.
Yeah, douchebaggery should not have its privileges. It already is privileged. You can already spend hundreds of millions of baht to buy this thing that you're driving around at a fraction of the speed it was designed to drive at. I get you're frustrated. That doesn't mean you get to be up front.
The dude in the Rolls Royce has already got a pretty good life.
Yeah.
Let me park close to the escalators, please.
He's not parking that car anyhow. Jeeves is parking that car, not that dude. So I believe we are both squarely in the loathe category this week.
Loathe. I loathe it. It's so stupid.
Oh, we certainly do. So, hey, listen, before we wrap things up, this is typically the part of the show where I find some interesting stat about the show, but here's the reality. I have been in Indonesia for the last month and have been drinking for the last 48 hours. So I've nothing interesting to say other than thank you to our patrons. We continue to grow every month, and many of you have thrown in additional cash so that you get bonus episodes or so that you get Greg to make up goofy stories like we did at the beginning of the program. So thanks very much to you guys. We just did an entire episode about my time in Indonesia and how much I loved it. Yeah, let's just go with that.
Yeah, sure.
What we just talked about. So you can listen to the whole thing right now and like 20 other full episodes you haven't yet heard because you're not yet our patron. So you should become our patron. You could get all of this cool bonus content, plus early access to the show and all sorts of other stuff that I believe now I'm leading into what you're supposed to be saying. My apologies.
That's no problem. I don't mind. I'm just going to lead right into saying thank you to everyone for listening to the Bangkok Podcast. Now, if you have something on your mind, you can just head to bangkokpodcast.com. You can leave a message for us there, or just reach out directly to me on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg.
Or you can leave us a message on the Facebooks, on the Twitters, or the Line. We're Bangkok Podcast on all of those places. Both of us are really good at responding to the comments you leave us, the questions you have for us, and also the heaps of praise you, well, I guess, heap upon us on those locations. For Greg Jorgensen, I am Evo Terra. We'll be back next week with more stories of our lives lived in the City of Angels, right here on the Bangkok Podcast. Chok di krap! It's an expat-filled episode, which should give you a Thai national living in Bangkok, and even no, why would I say that? The Thai national, giving the Thai national. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Giving, not you.